right? So he won 56.48%. It was lower than the 61 he won in 2023, but I've discussed that already. The key issue is, what is the background to this? This is the earliest any flag bearer has been chosen in our country, right? First month of the second year. So we have 3 years to go to the election, all right? Then, of course, there's another context here, which is, this is where the current president is doing pretty well. He was named among one of the 5 most influential leaders in the world for a number of things, all right? West Africa is a very unstable place. The Sahel zone has lots of issues. There was a coup attempt in Nigeria a couple of weeks ago, another in Benin. Ghana is the doyen and the ocean, it's sort of like the island of stability in an ocean of instability. President Mahama has been voted number 5 on a global list of influential world leaders, not least because of his Accra reset, okay? So he's popular in Ghana. Some of the polls show high approval ratings. He's likely to be AU chair. And with all that he's doing at Davos, he convened an Accra reset event. A lot of people came. And of course, the economy seems to be doing very well. So Dr. Bawumia has won the NPP primaries, but to be opposition leader to a government that is doing well is an issue. And we will deal with that. So this is the first context, right? There seems to be strong, stable leadership under Mahama 2.0. And very few people doubt this, okay? Now, the other issue is that the NPP itself is suffering a dip in political fortunes, right? So 2016, 2020, 2024. Now, we've used this many times, so you understand what we're saying. If you see a deep blue, it means that NPP won this region with a strong majority. Now, what is very clear is that the electoral map of Ghana over the past 3 electoral cycles is getting greener, all right? Apart from the Ashanti region, which has maintained a deep blue, every region has changed from 2016. So in 2 electoral cycles, a whole raft of the country is very deep green. Upper East, Upper West, North, Savannah, Bono East, Oti, Volta, even Greater Accra, which MPP won in 2016, is now highly NDC. So Dr. Bawumia is taking over leadership of a party in a period where their political fortunes are dwindling very seriously, right? And let me just touch on a few points. So, for example, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 regions, 8 regions that the MPP won in 2016. They basically have only 3, all right? Eastern region was a stronghold. You can say it's not that much of a stronghold. Bono region was a stronghold. NDC has taken it, all right? Greater Accra region was 1. NDC has made it a stronghold. Western North, NDC won it, they've consolidated it. And you can say same for many. Afro region is now NDC. So the electoral map has changed. So that's the second big context that we have here. Now, as if this is not bad enough, Musa Danko has been studying changes in party affiliations. And this was December 2025 work he did, right? I just want to show you a few things here. So he's basically saying that respondents, 11,000 respondents, national sample, who claim that they are MPP between 2024 and 2025, or who self-identify, have reduced from 36 to 26%. And those who told him that they were NDC has increased from 33 to 41, right? And you notice that floating voters are also increasing, all right? But the next slide is what makes it even more serious for the MPP. Because generally speaking, MPP gets a lot of their votes from the Akan areas, right? Even among the Akan group, only 31% now claim to be MPP. And this is Musa Danko December last year. NDC seems to be making an inroad in the Akan areas, if Musa is to be believed, right? So you have 36% of respondents now saying, of Akans, saying that they are NDC. Only 31 saying they are MPP in his research. And he says if this trend continues, it's going to be very disastrous for them in 4 years. Then, of course, there's a whole issue of floating voters. So you notice, even for the Akan group, the number of people who say they are floating voters is going up. So it's possible that a lot of these people may have been from here and they've moved this way. And then, of course, there are people who say they will not disclose another 12%. Okay. So the context for Bawumia is the issue of dwindling party fortunes, electoral map is not looking great, and traditional NPP voters seem not to really want to identify with the party. All right, so it's an issue for him. It seems to be an issue for him. So he's taking over at a very interesting time. Now, what is his challenge? He was vice president for 8 years. Now he's the opposition leader. NPP's constitution is very clear. If you are the flag bearer in opposition, you are the leader of the party. Okay? Of course, if you are in government, then the president becomes the leader of the party. So he's the leader of a party. And this is the first time he's leading a party like this. Because even whilst the election 2024 was going on, you can say the president was the leader. All right? So now he's leading a party which has brand issues. NDC appeared very appealing to young people in the 2024 election. If you look at the voting pattern disaggregated in some demographic areas, it's very clear that the NPP is bleeding. Some of the known faces of the party who represent it don't necessarily cover it in the greatest glory. Right? Somebody even said that right now, the NDC, there was a group of university professors who were campaigning for Mahama in 2024. NPP used to call itself the party of the intellectuals. So there seems to be some branding issues. So now he's going to be an opposition leader for a political party with a very difficult 2024 election outturn and also a lowering trend. It's not just 2024, it's coming down, right? How does he lead? This is the first time he's leading the organization. Prior to this, he was running mate. Akufo-Addo was the leader of the party. Then he was vice president. Now he's going to lead the NPP. And he has some very tough calls to make. We think there are about 4 tough calls he has to make as leader. Number 1, he needs to deal with the issue of the disunity in the party, right? The language of the campaign was vitriolic. Kwame Japan said to us, red lines were crossed. I mean, a candidate called him a liar. Another one said, we have a candidate problem, okay? And you could tell that he was ill at ease during the peace pact signing. And when you interview these people, he wasn't very happy with the way the campaign went. It's one thing for people to come together after an election to say, we are all together, we are one happy family. But as leader of the NPP, he needs to do this. But the question is, will he reconcile or level retribution? Particularly not even for him, but his own people. Because the thing about primaries is that once a candidate wins, his henchmen also become very powerful. So the man himself may say, you know what, I'm okay with Brian. In fact, today, Brian Champon sent a statement congratulating Dr. Bawumia and committing himself to NPP and all of this. But maybe some of the people in the Bawumia camp may not necessarily be happy with Bawumia, with Brian. They may see him as a threat. All right? So, of course, he said it himself. The most important leadership challenge for Dr. Bawumia is the unity issue, particularly with these two. Again, if you put the 23 of Kennedy together with the 18 of Brian, that's about 41, 42%. Right? That's a lot. So you can say that about 40-something% of the voters do not necessarily prefer Bawumia as their leader. Of course, he's won. So that doesn't mean that they will not align. But the point we are making is that everybody will be watching how he deals with these two. All right? And everybody knows how these two also behave, right? So he's issued a statement. He says to my brother, Dr. Bawumia, I'm committed to the party and to the government. He also has considered and called Dr. Bawumia. He hasn't issued a statement yet. We don't know. So a lot hangs, and Dr. Bawumia himself has said that the disunity affected the election outcome. He said it even when the MPs went to meet him. So that's a very big leadership challenge. How do you heal the wounds? And the task is, do you reconcile or you go for retribution? Because as we said, some of the things said were very serious. So we don't know how much time he has to do this, right? Then, because MPP decided to choose their flag bearer first, it solves some problems that create others, right? Because if you choose your flag bearer last, he didn't choose who the general secretary was. He may have supported somebody, but you can't blame him. But now he's the main guy. You're going to have elections from polling stations to constituency to regional to national. People will start campaigning and say, I'm the Bawumia candidate. How do you know? How do you manage that? Are you going to say, we don't support anybody? Now, the challenge with the chairmanship is that, of course, in certain times, the leader of the party is the chairman. Okay, now think about this. Wontumi today issued a statement that he wants to run for NPP chairmanship. Ashanti regional chairman wants to go for national chairmanship. Okay, now you look at the Bawumia brand and you look at the Wontumi brand and you ask yourself, if Wontumi becomes NPP chair, how does that align? He's a very strong supporter of Dr. Bawumia from long, all right? Then you have Nana Komia, who's like one of his key campaign guys, who we also know is being encouraged to run for party chairman. So does he support this one? Does he support that one? Then you have this one, Boakye Jakun, who some people see to be a strong person, who they feel could be an effective leader. Indeed, some people have said one of the reasons why NPP didn't do well in 2024 is that the party had weak leadership. They blame, for example, the absence of the national chairman. We know he has not been too well. So they want a strong leader, and they point to Boakye Jakun. Will Bawumia, and by the way, he went to meet Bawumia today. They had a good embrace, they had a good chat. Will the Bawumia people want him to be chair? Will they see an Afoko situation? That Jakun is very independent. I mean, he was energy minister before. We all know part of the reasons why there was a falling out. He's seen as a strong character. Very knowledgeable, but very strong. Strong to the point of he may even challenge a certain type of thinking. And then, of course, some people see him, former general secretary, as like the compromise, right? Some people feel like he doesn't necessarily align to any side, and he's basically the guy who can bring people together. So, apart from uniting the party in terms of who the flag bearers were, he has to make a decision. And this is not just for this. General secretary, does he show his hand? Even if he's not going to show his hand, how does he? Because, look, whatever Kojo Oponkroma or Sami Ewuku or Miracle Saboaji or Anodompre does, some people will say it's Bawumia because we know, you understand, these are his people. So it's a very big issue. How do you oversee a party that's now going to do many elections? Chairman, general secretary, national organizer, treasurer, and then regional chairpersons, constituencies. It's going to be a lot. We haven't even come to parliamentary candidates and parliamentarians as well. So it's a massive challenge that he has to deal with, all right? And that's not all. Even in parliament. Yesterday, we were covering the parliamentary leadership press conference, which was jointly organized by the minority and the majority leadership. In the middle of the press conference, the minority leader said he had to leave because he says, well, his colleagues have gone to Dr. Bawumia's house. Now the question was, you are the leader of the minority. So is it that when they scheduled this meeting, you didn't know they were going? Is it that they decided they didn't tell you? So we even have a video, I don't know if you have it here, where he actually then sort of apologizes and leaves the press conference to get to Dr. Bawumia's house. And you're asking yourself, is it that because he got so many votes in his constituency or people in his constituency voted for Kennedy and he's seen as a friend of Kennedy, he's not part? Now, there are already clamors around the leadership should be changed. So what does the flag bearer do? And mind you, Afenyoman King is MP for Efutu. His deputy leader is MP for Asokwa, who happens to be the wife of Dr. K.K. Sapong, who supported Kennedy Japan. So it's like the minority leadership, his voters gave Kennedy 89%. Bawumia won here, but you see where I'm going with this, right? And then AU Free Fidiasi Asokori's constituents gave Bawumia 91%. He's a very vocal guy. We interview him a lot. He has his own ideas. There are some who are tipping and touting that he should be made indeed, we are hearing that some people want somebody from the Ashanti region to be the minority leader. All right. How does Dr. Bawumia handle such a thing? All right. Does he keep the boat? And of course, finance minister for the last few months of Akufo-Addo gave Bawumia the highest percentage in the north, Dr. Amin. It's an economist, right? Now, if you've chosen an economist as your flag bearer, it suggests that the strength of the parties in the economy. Are you going to then say, let our front bench have finance and economic people? Because this is a lawyer, right? So these are very, very interesting issues, right? Does Dr. Bawumia take a position? Does he just say, let's allow things to remain the way they are? He may have to issue a statement because the speculation is a lot. All right. All right. Does he have a role for the 4 people who challenged him? Will there be, and by the way, February 22nd was when these two, in 2024, were made majority leader and deputy. So Chairman Sir left the position 2 years ago of majority leader. And then, of course, after the election, they sort of continued as minority leader. So you can say he's been leading the parliamentary group for 2 years. Do people want a reshuffle? The flag bearer has to decide. So does he retain or does he do a reshuffle? Then there's, of course, there's a big one. You know, if you listen to the campaign, it was a difficult campaign for Bawumia because how do you take credit for Akufo-Addo's success and then you repudiate his failures? You get it? Because it was a mixed bag, especially if you look at the first 4 years. I mean, COVID time, people like Akufo-Addo was on top. The way he led the nation at COVID, fellow Ghanaians, great success. COVID comes, whatever happens, Russia, Ukraine, the rest of it, and it's downhill. Debt exchange. Now they say sack the finance minister. I don't want to do it. DDEP. No haircuts. I mean, a whole lot of things, right? So what does he do? Is he, of course, he didn't vote, or we didn't see him voting, so which suggests that he's trying to be neutral. How does Dr. Bawumia manage the Akufo-Addo legacy? Because, by the way, some people think the NPP lost so badly because of the way Akufo-Addo governed. Other people think the NPP lost so badly because of who Dr. Bawumia is. And I'm talking about the lead reason. There are many reasons why you lose elections, right? So, when he talks to delegates, he says, we lost because our people didn't vote. When you listen to what he says to delegates, he says, we lost because Mahama didn't get a net increase in votes by any. It was our people who didn't vote. So is he basically saying that it wasn't because Akufo-Addo was not perceived to be a bad leader or that his government was not that bad? It was just our people didn't vote. If your people didn't vote, why didn't they vote? Were they apathetic because they didn't like you or they didn't like his policies or both? Right? And these are questions he will face. So does he embrace the Akufo-Addo legacy and say, look, Akufo-Addo, and I stand by everything Akufo-Addo did? Or I am responsible for everything? Or I'm the mate and therefore it's going to be complicated. And a lot of Ghanaians would want a lot more clarity. So this is more to the Ghanaians. Of course, when you listen to him during the campaign for primaries, when you are talking to delegates, you know what to say, right? You're not going to blame your boss in front of delegates necessarily. You have to encourage. But talking to delegates in primaries is different from talking to Ghanaians. And it's just a year and a half or whatever that the election was done, December 2024. So it's a lot of maybe 14 months, right? How does he deal with this this large shadow? How does he deal with this shadow that he confronts? So we're basically analyzing the challenge Dr. Bawumia faces as a leader. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going to do something very interesting. We're going to propose 4 possible matchup scenarios, right? Because don't forget, until Saturday, nobody knew who was going to be the flag bearer. So even NDC, I'm sure there were some who were like, if Kennedy wins, this person is better. If Bawumia wins, this person is better. All right? Or if somebody else wins. And so now that he's won, how does that change the calculus of NDC in terms of who their front runners are and how the possible, because Mahama is not going to do a 3rd term. He said that the law doesn't agree. So basically, NDC is going to have a new candidate. And this is somebody who's known. We'll deal with that when we come back. And we also have a few pieces of advice on how to navigate those murky waters. This is the point of view. It's a 2-in-1. This is our editorial. When we come back after the editorial, we'll speak to 2 professors as well on prophecies, prophesying what the Dr. Bawumia flag bearership win for NPP means for him. He obviously has to lead. He has tough decisions to make in uniting the party. He needs to decide what to do with, particularly because Kwabena Agyepong and Dr. Educhum seem to already sort of align, right? And the campaign they did was of a different nature, okay? He has to decide how to go about the elections, the issue of who takes over from, or whether there's going to change the leadership in the minority at all is an issue. and of course, the looming question of the Akufo-Addo legacy. Now, there are people who say that if Kennedy Agyapong had won the election, a different type of person would have become favorite in NDC, because Kennedy Agyapong is seen as a maverick. So for a lot of the political elite, Dr. Bawumia is seen as the safe choice. So like the establishment choice. Kennedy is seen as a maverick. And that a lot of people in NDC said if Kennedy Agyapong had won, the kind of person they would have wanted to lead them may have been different. Right? Because now that Dr. Bawumia is the flag bearer, of course, there are about 4 lead names. Again, we are using the research of Global Info Analytics. The 4, he is the chairman of the party, former general secretary. He's done a thank you tour. And he seems to be very strong among NDC people, right? He's not lost any election. He's run in the NDC. General secretary, 2004-5, he's won all. Very formidable, very popular among the grassroots. But the question is, now that he has won, how does that influence the way NDC delegates see him? Because in our view, if he gets the flag bearership, it will be a battle of contrasts, right? When you listen to General Mosquito, very street smart, highly intelligent, downplays Buklong, right? So he doesn't present himself as an academic. He will fear Nyansa. Now, that doesn't mean he's not smart. He used to be Deputy Agric Minister. He's a very intelligent person. But it's a very contrasting picture you have, because the way people perceive Dr. Bawumia, former African Development Bank, economics professor, and General Mosquito is a politician's politician, right? Now, will the NDC present him? If they do, what does that mean? How does that influence the narrative? By the way, we are many years ahead from the election. We have 2026 to finish. We haven't even started it well. 2027 hasn't come. 2028 hasn't come. So all these are scenarios, right? The polls will change. But the point we're making is, if eventually he wins, whichever way the cookie crumbles, is going to be a contrast of styles, a contrast of backgrounds, a contrast of emphasis, a contrast of perception. And it's going to be a very stark choice, right? The question will be for a lot of floating voters, where do they want to go? How will NDC delegates perceive a potential matchup between General Mosquito and Dr. Bawumia? I leave that to your imagination. Then there's this. Now, the reason we brought this in is, again, the polls, particularly Musa, is showing very high numbers for this gentleman. And it's not surprising, right? And let me explain something before I go back to this. So, for example, today, the Ghana Statistical Service announced the inflation figure. Inflation is 3.8%. It's the lowest in 30 years, right? Think about it. Since 1990-something, inflation is the lowest in 30 years. And of course, when the fundamentals go bad, the finance ministry is blamed. Indeed, even in the MPP, if any people like Adjo Asafo, they say it was the finance minister who destroyed the economy, not Dr. Bawumia. So it means that when the economy goes well, the finance minister that takes the credit. It's that simple, right? So even when you listen to the debates in the MPP primaries, they're saying that, well, you can't blame the vice president for the economy because it was the finance minister. So if the economy goes well, check this out. Dr. Bawumia famously said, if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. Guess what? Ghana's currency makes historic yearly gain against the dollar. And this is close of 2025, more than 40%. Is the first, when you take the year, first annual increase of the cedi against the dollar to close a year since 1994. Guys, that's 32 years. So in fact, some people feel like with the choice of Dr. Bawumia, it sort of plays into this guy because he's not said he wants to be president. He's just doing his job, right? But he's holding the bag. And he's very powerful. If you talk to, look, we're interviewing a minister who was saying, like, sometimes they go to the Ministry of Finance to just lobby that payments be made because once you have the bag, you have the keys. All right. So does this victory mean that NDC delegates will start saying, look, if the economy keeps doing well, if we push this guy, what does he have to say? Right? Because the CD, it got to, I don't know, whatever, 14, 15 under Dr. Bawumia or the MPP, right? He's brought it to a stable between 10 and 12. And it stayed in that band for almost 8 months. Okay? Of course, the question is, can they sustain it? But imagine if they did for another year. Imagine if the city was still between 10 and 12. And imagine if the economy kept growing. Imagine if they start doing the big push and the roads start coming. Because don't forget, when you pick your presidential candidate early, you don't know what the election will be about. You don't know whether it's an election on economy, or it's an election on corruption, or on security. But you've already chosen your guy. And your guy is economy. He's economy for 8 years. He's digital, but more economy. Even digital is economy, right? So in a strange way, his choice has brought him to the fore. It will be interesting to see what the polls say. So maybe we'll talk to Musa next week and ask him, you've been polling up to January. Now that he's been chosen, does this change the calculus for this guy? He hasn't said he wants to be president. But his name keeps coming up. He's a 46, 47-year-old from the central region. And for some reason, the NDC keeps giving central region, right? Males. And then now you have the vice president from the central region, which brings me to my third point. All right. So now you have, so if this is the race, it's the economy race. All right. Now, she hasn't said she wants to be president. So all of what we are doing is based on polling and anecdotal evidence, but it's important for the context, right? She's a vice president. He's been vice president for 8 years. So if for some reason the NDC decides that, look, we want continuity. We don't want any fight. We don't want General Mosquito versus Haruna Iddrisu anything. We just want Mahama to continue, or Mahama is, what do you call it? His terms tied. So we want his vice president to ascend for a seamless continuity. So no gidi primaries beer. How does that change the calculus? First woman versus first Muslim, both vice presidents, right? 8 years as vice, 4 years as vice. Do you compare the records? So will she say, compare my 4 years as his Muhammad's number 2 to his 8 years and Akufo-Addo and make a choice? All right? First woman VC of a university. She was education minister as well. So this is a very different race. It's a bit like Obama versus Hillary, right? First black versus first woman. It's nobody knows. And by the way, because her team hasn't said anything about her interest, it appears he's doing very low in the polls. A lot of the polls we see doesn't even come up at all. But we need to say that when you see how she's leading, for example, last 2 weeks, transport ministry, she's gone to many places and she's very, she's working a lot. Not campaigning, but she's working. She's doing the leadership work. So we don't know, right? Then there's also this one. I think it's serious. So there's this one. This one, because, we know Haruna Iddrisu, right? MP for Tamale South, a very interesting political figure, education minister. Some are even touting that he should be sent to defense. Right? Haruna has been there, done that, has a t-shirt. Very influential in the north. I think I saw a video of Suhini talking about him, thanking him. He has a lot of sway, even among non-NDC northern politics. So if this were the matchup we were to get, Wale Wale versus Tamale South, Mamprusi versus Dagomba, North, it will be very interesting. All right? Because don't forget that the map we showed you earlier, nobody can doubt the fact that the votes NPP gets in the north over the past 3 or 4 electoral cycles has increased because of him. Okay, so how does bringing him affect that? All right, how does bringing him affect that? We've already shown you the account numbers. How does bringing him affect that? So this is our analysis. The choice of this man disadvantages him. This is first point. Disadvantages him because if it was this guy, then people would have said, whoa, This guy is on way, so let's get somebody who can match him, right? So again, we haven't spoken to anybody necessarily in the team, but from all the analysis we've done, if he had won, this guy would have been like, hey, Charlie, a very serious. So in a sense, the Bawumia victory sort of has dampened this, because it's like, Charlie, you know, Ghanaians, Bukulong people, hey, professor of economics, and the way they will do it, of course, he can hold his own in any debate, but we're saying it will not be the same type of race, particularly for the undecided and the middle class voters. It's going to be very difficult. So if it was this guy, he would have been in pole position. So our prediction is that because it's Bawumia, this gentleman seems to be the logical choice, at least for now, because of the way the economy is going. Okay? Because of the way the economy is going. And if the NDC succeeds in managing the economy well, he has a problem. Right? And I think they want to make the election an economy election. If the things go south, then, because this is his forte, right? So if the economy goes extremely bad, he knows his economics. So even though people accuse him of not being that influential under Akufo-Addo, he can say, look, now I'm in the helm. I'm the head of I'm in charge. And I've done economics. But it depends on how this guy behaves. This one, we don't know. Because the team is keeping their cards close to their chest. All right? Some see it as the safe Mahama transition choice because they don't want confusion in the NDC. And of course, this is an interesting one because there are also, for example, Agyemang alleges that there's a plan to make her the flag bearer and make him the running mate. Right? According to Agyemang, if it's to be believed, he said it, I think it was in the open, that there's a plan to make the vice president the flag bearer and Haruna the running mate. How does that affect this calculus? All right. Now, we are going to conclude by saying a few things. We think, of course, just quickly before I go there, September, according to Musa Dankwa, NDC voters, it's funny, NDC voters say they want Bawumia to win the NPP primaries. And at the time, NPP voters say they want General Mosquito to win the primaries. So this was what they said in September. Can you imagine? Of course, it's September. So this Musa Dankwa poll, September last year, NDC people said they want him to win, and MPP people said they want him to win. So they may get the race, who knows? Edu Maklo posted on Facebook, the MPA boss, head of legal, he said they were expecting him to win. They were expecting him to win. So I take it that NDC sort of knows what to do with him, but NDC wasn't sure what to do with this guy. Right? So I can imagine a sigh of relief when he didn't win because, hey, Charlie, Akwawe, there's some way. Of course, some would have said if he wins, we have a strategy, okay? Now, the other interesting point is that 31st December poll, according to Musa, Ato Forson leads both men. All right? But this is December 2025. Election is in December 2028. All right? So it's very long. Let me conclude. For him to do what he has to do, the message he tells delegates is not the same message he tells Ghanaians. You can tell delegates that we lost because you didn't turn out to vote. But you have to be upfront to Ghanaians. And he has to admit the failures of the previous administration. And he has to figure out how to do it. We don't know how he's going to do that. Because what delegates are looking for in a flag bearer may not be what the rest of the population, particularly the floating voters, will be looking for. So he has a challenge there. Now, jobs are the most important thing for any economy, particularly for Ghana. And if you look at the accent for youth, he needs to start talking about or thinking about a credible plan for job creation. Right? Jobs will always be important. So whatever happens in the economy next year, macroeconomy, whatever, if people don't have work to do, they are not happy. Number 3, NDC's own behavior. If NDC decides to throw all caution to the wind and start doing campaign like fighting each other, it opens the door because it's not very common to win when you challenge an incumbent in the first 4 years. But this incumbent is going to be a different person than Mahama. So he will see that he has an opportunity there. And of course, in our world, anything can happen. The way Trump is behaving, you know, touch wood, if there's another world war, who knows what that will mean for gold, cocoa. African economies are very fragile, right? So if the economy, by some accident of global events, becomes tragically poor, he can say, look, I know what to do. We don't know. These are our ideas. These are just our thoughts for the implications of a Bawumia flag bearership. Early days yet. Early days yet. When we come back, I'll speak to two professors